Good morning, everyone. So the presentation of today is the role of land use planning in disaster risk reduction, and the case taken is the village of Montagne. So let's start with an introduction. Climate change constitutes a significant threat to countries worldwide. The complications associated with climate change have been seen via the rising sea levels, increase in extreme weather occurrences, and changes in ecosystems. In Mauritius, the consequences of these disasters were mostly observed during the last 25 years. Although the effects associated with climate change cannot be stopped, it can be mitigated so that it affects the least possible the communities, the built environment, and the natural habitat. A key strategy for mitigating the consequences of the disasters are adopting appropriate disaster risk reduction strategies, with land use planning being an essential aspect in this approach. The aim of the study was to examine the role and the importance that land use planning plays in the disaster risk reduction process and ways by which it can be properly and effectively implemented without compromising the infrastructural and structural development as well as the well-being of the community. The objective of the study was to emphasize and illustrate the crucial role that land use planning plays in the disaster risk reduction strategy for the area of Montagne, formulate recommendations for the application of land use planning within the disaster risk reduction strategy, focusing on aspects that can be addressed gradually, ensuring the stability of the existing system. Now we'll move to the next slide, which is the literature review. The literature review underscored the significant contribution of land use planning in disaster risk reduction, particularly in relation to the increasing climatic changes related challenges worldwide and in Mauritius. It also highlighted the effectiveness of land use planning strategies in reducing risk of disasters with assistance from tools like the Sendai framework and the local legislative tools like the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act of 2016. The existing land use strategies, which are already being used in Mauritius and internationally, were examined, and the following key practices stood out, namely the zoning, state settlement design, the use of multi-hazard risk maps, and the involvement of local inhabitants as stakeholders in the planning process. This slide shows the region of Montagne. As you can see, Montagne is in between a mountain and a river. The yellow line depicts the road which the inhabitants of Montagne uses to get in and out of the village. On top of the yellow line, we have a large part of the built-up area which lies on the slope of the mountain itself, and beneath the yellow line is the other part of the village which adjoins the river. Consequently, there is also the escarpment of the river where normally a setback is mandated. If you go on the top right corner, we have another part where we have observed that residential Mont-Selmans are being constructed and also there are many international schools like Le Bocage, among others, which are nested over there. This map depicts the village of Montagne, but within the Land Drainage Authority's point of view. As you can see, there are lines on the map, and to give you briefly an overview, the yellow lines are the natural drainage paths which passes through the village of Montagne, and beneath you can see the purple line. It depicts Rivière Moka, and the blue part is the river's reserve, which needs to be respected. For more information, let's go to the next slide, where I will give you a better explanation on the following. So the map below displays the area Montagne as viewed on the latest map from the Land Donors Authority. The Land Donors Authority has surveyed the whole area and has put forward its result on April 2022 in form of a map which has shown all the water features. Its focus is on the flood-prone area and the natural drainage paths found within Mauritius. The yellow line depicts natural drainage paths and the purple line are water bodies. In this context, it represents the river and the flood-prone area. Another issue observed during the study is the intensification of development works on environmentally sensitive areas. The pictures which will follow shows the infrastructural and structural development carried out on the slope of Montagne. This area is particularly appreciated for its calm and serene environment, the breathtaking scenic view, and the availability of facilities in proximity or in the area itself. The development of residential morcellement on the slope of the mountain itself is increasingly alarming. All these development works have led to the deforestation of the slope and have created slope failure, landslide, and erosion problems. If development continues at this rate, this issue will be intensified. There is also disruption of the ecosystem, which affects the local flora and fauna. Changes to natural landscapes may cause habitat destruction and shifts in biodiversity, factors that are vital for preserving ecological stability. As you can see in this picture, we have shown the intense development works being undertaken in the region of Montagne. In the first picture, we have a building being constructed on the slope itself. In the second picture, as you can see, we have an area which is, we can say it is built up, and on the third one as well, it's built up with view of constructing more. In this slide, we can see that individuals were preparing the land for a construction on the slope of Montagne. The individuals were doing massive development works, which consisted of deforesting part of the slope, which is extremely dangerous for the inhabitants of that region. This deforestation can lead to soil erosion, which eventually can lead to rockfall and landslides. Still, we are in the village of Montagne, and there are two pictures here depicting the effects of soil erosion. On the first picture, we have the one on a river reserve, and the second, it's in a residential area, but we can see that deforestation, among others, are leading to accumulation and even soil erosion in the area. Now, another issue that was taken in the study are earth retaining structure. What is an earth retaining structure? Earth retaining structures have been used all along the Montagne where elevation is high and buildings are close. These earth retaining structures are essential in mitigating the risk of slope failures, which pose considerable threats including landslides, damage to property, and potential loss of life. These earth retaining structures help to prevent soil erosion and instability which can destabilize the surrounding area, leading to landslides or ground subsidence. They prevent structural damage to buildings and infrastructure situated near these slopes. They ensure safety hazards are avoided as the potential for landslides or the collapse of debris present significant dangers to individuals on foot or to vehicles. These structures have an impact on the drainage system of the area as the insufficient retaining structures can disturb the natural flow of drainage, causing water to accumulate and increasing the likelihood of flooding. This situation can overwhelm existing drainage systems, leading to further erosion and potential harm to the surrounding environment. This was observed during the passage of the Cyclone Bilal in 2025, where there was flooding seen in Montagne for the first time. Now there are some examples of the earth-retaining structures constructed in the area, some on very high elevations, as you can see in the three pictures. This slide depicts the importance of earth-retaining structures. So, on the first picture on the left, it is a picture taken from the newspaper L'Express on the 13th of February 2013. There was a landslide where the then newly constructed building on the slope was being subjected to the risk of getting damaged due to the landslide. On that day, a significant section of the earth fell on the roadway, entirely obstructing the Montagne road, which links Mocha to the motorway, which resulted in a disturbance to the inhabitants and the users of the road. Fortunately, no one was injured that day. And on the picture on the right depicts the mitigating measures which were then undertaken by the government to ensure the prevention of landslides. This resulted in the construction of an earth-retaining structure for that area, which till now has proven its worth. So we can deduct that this is not only a problem to the infrastructure, but also can cause serious disturbance in the livelihood of the inhabitants of that region. We will now go on the slide, which is the research methodology used for this study. The qualitative method was used, and personal interviews were conducted from professionals and officers from the local authorities who are responsible in the decision-making process to be able to understand the views on the role of land use planning in the disaster risk reduction strategy. On-site observations, namely through site visits, was also done. The reasoning to use this method is as follows. The subject is very technical and cannot be quantified as such. Thus, the use of interviews captures how the interviewees truly feel and understand about this phenomenon. We'll now move to the next slide, which is the data analysis. From the interviews conducted, the following issues and concerns were identified. The need of a multi-hazard risk map, disaster risk reduction not being at the center of decision-making process, the lack of updated information and tools for decision makers to ensure that accurate and conscious decisions are being taken, outdated legal framework and policies which does not match the current needs and requirements, unregulated infrastructural development on the environmentally sensitive areas, namely along the river reserves and sloping sides, leading to soil erosion and other hazards. Public consultation not done for many projects. We'll now move on the recommendations that this study provided. The first is the usage of a multi-hazard risk map. This research put forward the need to have a map which encompasses all the factors which affect any region in Mauritius. This will help stakeholders in the decision-making process, providing useful insights which previously might not have been shared among the stakeholders. This recommendation is also one of the main targets of the Sendai framework. The second is to adopt sustainable urban planning. It is imperative to adopt sustainable urban planning practices. This framework addresses various components including construction, infrastructure, lifestyle, and transportation systems. Moving on to the third recommendation of the study is an updated and unified legal framework. It was observed that although there's an effort to address and have a strong disaster risk reduction plan, the legislations are fragmented. The need of a legislative framework with the appropriate guidelines which unified all the recommendations so as to avoid any inconsistencies is required. The fourth is an active public participation. The efficacy of any legislative action or initiative undertaken by an authority depends on the collective engagement of every resident in Montagne for the effort of an efficient disaster risk reduction strategy. The inhabitants of Montagne should be a major stakeholder in the decision-making process. The fifth and last recommendation put forward by the study is the strict implementation of building codes from local authorities with regular control. Local authorities need to ensure that all development projects hold a valid building and land use permit where mandated and are respecting all the conditions as imposed in the permit. There have been incidents where illegal constructions have been noted on environmentally sensitive areas or in high hazard risk zones. It is imperative to implement more stringent ex-post control mechanisms and stricter legislations that mandate the pulling down of illegal structures situated on or adjacent to identified environmentally sensitive areas. In conclusion, the study examined the crucial role of land use planning in enhancing disaster risk reduction in Montagne, which experienced a rapid development over the past 25 years. It highlighted the importance of a robust disaster risk reduction strategy to mitigate the impact of past and future disasters. The key strategy explored included zoning, settlement design, the use of multi-hazard risk maps, and involvement of local habitants as stakeholders in the planning process. The interviews revealed consensus on the effectiveness of land use planning in disaster risk reduction, but also highlighted concerns about the fragmented legislative framework and poor implementation. Participants called for unified legislation and clear guidelines along with up-to-date multi-hazard maps to support informed decision-making. Overall, the study provides valuable insight that can inform on a national scale efforts toward building a more resilient Mauritius through better land use planning and promoted the achievement of the SDGs. Thank you all for your attention.